right, brother. Start cleaning those tires up. Don't green this time. Remember, they fan out down there, so protect that bottom. Sunday drive. All right, boss man. Face car's off. Be ready. All right, bud, be ready. Gas that bitch up. Ready. Green flag. Green.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Inside Pass on this Wednesday afternoon. Facebook Live, as those of you who normally tune into the show, we do Facebook Live on Wednesday afternoon, and then the show airs Saturday morning at 9 a.m. on WSIC Radio. So we have got a fantastic show for you today. We're actually, Tom, me and you were actually in the studio at the same time before the show started.
Isn't that amazing?
It's amazing.
Lap traffic was so cooperative today.
It's amazing. Those of you who have been with us for the last 2 weeks, it's been kind of a tumultuous 2 weeks for me and Tom, but we're here on time today. And we also have a special in-studio guest today. Tyler Ankrum is in the studio with us. He's going to join us for the show, and we're going to get to know Tyler a little bit better in the second half of our show and get a little bit of preview into Darlington and Richmond, which are the last two races before the playoffs in the Truck Series. Tyler is holding up the playoff board right now. He's down at the bottom, but he's the last guy in. So as long as he keeps everybody else at bay, then he'll make the playoffs.
He's
for the
been there before.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is a carbon copy of 2019.
Basically, well, 2019 I had a win, so
that
true, goes a long ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, still chasing that win. But I think we are, well, as we were talking before the show, we're working on a few things to make a little bit more speed out of the trucks. I'm working on a few things to become better and smarter as a driver. So I think that win will be coming soon.
Well, it's a new team too, so you can't expect to have the same results 2 years in a row when you have a brand new team. So, but we'll talk to Tyler about what's going on over at GMS Racing. I'm interested. Do you guys haven't unveiled your throwback scheme yet? Have you?
Actually, we just did I think it was 2 days ago.
Oh, okay.
I'm running the Yellow Banana.
I saw that.
The 1966 Junior Johnson Mercury.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I'm really excited.
It's so Tyler.
Oh, that's I have that Matchbox car, my house in California.
Really?
Yeah. So as a kid, I was always a really big fan of Junior Johnson and Smokey Yunick. Henry Smokey Yunick, and I was always a really big fan of those guys just because you'd always hear stories of their creativity when it come to race cars and how they were built, and those were my two favorite mechanics / car builders / owners, car chiefs, crew chiefs, whatever you want to call them, and I was always just a big fan. So at the beginning of the year, I found out that Mike had worked with Junior Johnson. Mike Beam had worked with Junior Johnson for a really long time. So one of the first or second week at GMS, I was up in Mike Beam's office, and I go, man, I do not care what we do this year because we're talking about schemes. I said, I do not care. Throwback weekend, all I want is Junior Johnson's Yellow Banana. I said, I do not care what else we do because I was driving the 26, and that was the 26 as well.
Yep.
That was one of Junior Johnson's numbers. So as soon as I said that, he's like, yeah, we'll make it happen.
That's awesome.
They worked on the scheme for 2 weeks. Everything actually is correct on the scheme. The only thing that's different is they don't have the cubic inch. We have Liuna on the hood that replaces the cubic inches of the engine, which I think for the Ilmore engine, which we run the Chevrolet in the Chevy trucks, is a 396 big block, I believe. I don't remember, but they did that instead, just to keep our sponsor Liuna happy, and they've been great to work with. Actually, they love the scheme. We presented it to them. They were like, "Oh heck yeah, this is awesome."
That's great.
Yeah, so I'm ready for Darlington.
It should be fun. Darlington's always fun. Old school is always fun. It's always fun to look back and realize where the sport came from. And I think the throwback schemes are a great way to do that.
Yeah, I'm happy that they're actually including the trucks and Xfinity into it this year too, to make it an all-around, all three series doing it. And there's a lot of really cool paint schemes throughout all three series. So it'll be interesting to see what ends up happening. For those of you who don't really know Tyler that well, Tyler is kind of like an old school racer trapped in a 19-year-old body. So everything about him is
He's
so
an
old
school
person.
person.
He's an old school person. Yeah, he really is. But everything about him is old school El Caminos and
Yeah, I still have that.
So, yeah. So we'll get to know Tyler a little bit more in the second half of the show. But I want to talk about the 16 drivers that make up the NASCAR playoffs this year. After Daytona, of course, I think everybody wanted Jimmy Johnson to be in the playoffs since it's his final year, and he came so close, but yet, accidents and the big one happened, and ultimately he ended up not being able to make the playoffs, so he will not see his chance at an 8th championship. But his teammate, William Byron, got his first career NASCAR Cup Series win on Saturday night. So he will join Kevin Harvick, Denny Hamlin, Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano, Chase Elliott, Martin Truex, Ryan Blaney, Alex Bowman, of course, William Byron. He's the last driver in on wins. Actually, Austin Dillon is the last driver in on wins. Cole Custer, Eric Almirola, Clint Boyer, Kurt and Kyle Busch, and then Matt DiBenedetto surprised everybody, I think, and actually ended up making the chase. Of those drivers, Tom, I think obviously Matt DiBenedetto is somebody who needed to make the chase because he still doesn't have a firm 2021 plan yet. Everybody else, I think, was kind of expected. Do you agree? Or besides maybe Cole Custer because he came out and won a race, but other than that, I mean.
Well, I don't know. I mean, when you look at drivers like Eric Almirola, you look at even Kurt Busch, for the way that they've performed this year, it's been just good enough for the most part.
And Kyle too, for that matter. And
Kyle too. Yeah, I mean, who would have thought we go an entire regular season with no Kyle Busch win? And so when you look at some of the drivers like Jimmy Johnson who didn't make it in, and then you look at the guys who did. I mean, it just goes to show you the depth of the competition. I mean, Eric Jones didn't make it. There are a number of drivers that really should have been in the playoffs. The 42 cars in the playoffs every year, but of course, this year Matt Kenseth coming in and just couldn't get enough, out of it to put it in. It shows you how hard it is and how many fast cars there are in Cup. We thought for a while, for example, that John Hunter Nemechek had enough speed in the 38 to point his way in, and then he sort of faded out as, the season kept going. So, I mean, I think for the most part, yeah, you got the guys you expect to be in, but I think when you get to the sort of maybe 10 through or 12 through 16, I think there are probably 12 guys in that group, and of course, only a handful of them are gonna make it in. Right, so, right. It's at the bottom of that 16 where I think it's most competitive, and I think it's you expect, for example, I would have thought the 21 would have made it. But, Matt has not had a particularly great season, and it's not all his fault, of course. But that's, I think it'll be interesting to see what the first round looks like, to be honest.
And I think having Kyle Busch sitting in 15th right now is kind of interesting because, with as much bad luck as he's had the last several weeks, he can't afford any more bad luck at this point. I mean, I know that, the points have been reset at this point, but he can't afford to have another bad week because he's going to be knocked out of the playoffs before they even really get going, and that's going to be hard to fathom. Kyle Busch not in the playoffs,
exactly.
After we get to the third race of this first round. So, but everybody else in there, Tyler, is there anybody in there that you felt surprised actually made it into the top 16?
Well, I'm definitely surprised William Byron made it in, but you know what? That tells you what a great effort a rookie, or not a rookie, a young driver and a veteran crew chief that can make, Hail Mary pass. And I mean, especially at Daytona. I mean, you show up to Daytona, it's a Hail Mary pass. Even when you go out just to practice, you're getting ready to throw a Hail Mary pass. So I'm surprised that he made it in, considering that, he hasn't really had the best performances out of all the Hendrick cars. But you know what? They stepped it up when come towards the end of the playoffs. They really did. He ran really good at Dover. He ran good at the races before that. But you guys, you have a little bit of doubt about Matt DiBenedetto, Matt Brito. My buddy in the 21.
We love Matt.
Yeah. Oh, but I think
he's a good friend of mine.
I think that he's going to surprise everyone.
I hope so.
I think he is because I think, in that Wood Brothers car, I think that if you look at all the Penske cars relatively all together, I think Blaney is really the only one that has consistent speed every single week, and I think Matt actually runs closer to what Joey and Keselowski run every single week. So I don't think he hasn't had the greatest season, but he's had a lot of really strong runs, and he's fairly consistent. And he never really ruffles too many feathers, and he never gets himself put in bad situations. I think he's a really good spot, or a really good racer, a really smart one as well. So I think he'll be the one that surprises all of us.
I hope you're right. And I agree with everything you said. And as far as it goes, I think when you get to the playoffs, and you know this yourself, if you're going to advance, you got to win. Mm-hmm. And I just haven't seen but maybe one or two races. And again, it's hard. Matt was in a different car with a different team last year. It's hard to, so I'm not saying the potential isn't there, but I think it's time and you got to go start winning. And I just haven't seen winning speed at too many races so far this year out of that team. and you're going to have to eventually. You're just going to run out of points if you don't win a race. So I can't believe Kyle Busch, for example, is going to go an entire playoff without winning something, right? So that's where I look at these guys and say, you know what? It's nothing personal. Just saying, when you look, Austin Dillon's kind of the same. He gets a win every now and then, and he wins his way in, and then he gets to the playoffs, and if he can't win again,
right?
So I think that's the difference between the guys that win the championships and the guys that aren't quite there yet,
right?
Well, and Matt actually has something to race for other than just wins and championship. He's fighting for his life at this point because he doesn't have a confirmed ride. So
which is sad.
Of the determination of the top 16, 15 of them know what they're doing next year. One of them does not. So he's obviously fighting for more than just points. But I mean, if you look at the list and you look at the guys on the list, I mean, obviously Stewart-Haas has all 4 of their cars in the playoffs. Penske has 4 of their cars. If you think about the Wood brothers too, everybody else has some of their teammates, but not all of them in there. But Tom, you and I talk all the time about consistency will get you into the playoffs, but consistency is not going to win you the championship,
right? Unless
you're Matt Crafton. Matt Crafton's the exception to the rule. But everybody else, I mean, especially at the Cup level, you have to win races to win the championship. That's just all there is to it. And when you look at Harvick and Hamlin and how dominant they've been all season long, now that everybody's pretty much reset at this point, now you have to go out and beat those 2 guys. It's not really about the other 14. It's about Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin and beating those 2 guys because obviously they've shown the power this year. Yeah,
I mean, those 2 are the guys, obviously, that you go into the playoffs and look at and say, if you're going to be the champion, you got to beat those 2 guys enough times to win it. And we haven't seen a lot of guys be able to do that, right? I mean, it's been a weird season, but I also know that when we get to the playoffs, and everybody kind of steps up their energy and their ambition and their aggression level, things happen that maybe don't happen during the regular season. So just because those 2 have won, a majority of the races between them or whatever, doesn't mean that somebody can't. You got to look at Tony Stewart in 2011. You got it when you get to the playoffs, a whole different ball game. And now we've got some tracks of the playoffs that haven't always been there, and it's a kind of like I said, this is sort of a weird year anyway, so I almost expect the unexpected in the playoffs.
You would almost hope that you would have the unexpected since we've had this whole season of, what if, let's try this, what if this doesn't work. So to end up, having that situation happen, you hope that we end up with at least a good mix of drivers in the Final 4. I mean, you obviously don't want all the Stewart-Haas drivers competing for the championship. You want each manufacturer kind of represented. You want that good mix of talent there.
That's right.
So let's talk about some news before we go to break, and then we'll finish it up when we get back. William Byron signed a contract extension with Hendrick Motorsports. He will be in the 24 through 2022, which is an interesting tidbit. I didn't know that Byron is actually younger than Jeff Gordon was when he won his first race.
Oh, yeah.
So, I think a lot of people just tend to forget how young William Byron actually is.
Well,
like in terms of, how quickly he moved up through the ranks.
Well, yeah, and I think that's, and it was interesting what you said earlier, Tyler, about saying that, I'm surprised William made it. Again, when you look at that bottom group, 2 of the 3 going in, it was Matty and 200 cars, and he was one of them. Like you would think that William Byron and Chad Knaus, like that would be, William would go start winning, but it takes a while sometimes to build chemistry. And I think William he advanced pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. I feel like he's still growing into his feet a little bit. And so I think going forward, you'll see William Byron's confidence level come up. And as that comes up, I think the performance goes with it. So I actually feel like you're right. A lot of people don't realize how young he is. And I think also a lot of people underestimate his upside potential. I think William is going to be, because he's very intelligent and he learns quickly. I think William, given another year, I think William's going to be great. Honestly, I think him and Chad will be really, really strong in 2021.
It's going to be a Joey Logano 2.0.
Yes,
I think that's exactly
so
what
too.
You saw. Joey Logano got in it really early, and it took a little while for him to get going, but he got going, and that can be tough. Working with a veteran crew chief, I've experienced that, and racing super late models, Blake Bainbridge and Clay Rogers, they're, my 2 head guys on my team when my father and I had our own super late model team. And, it did take about a year for that gap to bridge from, old school, language and lingo to mine. Because growing up racing quarter midgets and midgets and, racing open wheel cars with my father, that's the only kind of language I knew, is like me and Dad. It's like, so when the two tried to mesh in the middle, they just clashed, and it didn't really work. So it took a little while for that to get going, and once it did, we took off, and we went and won races, and we were fast. So I can definitely understand if that's a part of their Chad's and Williams' relationship right now, and I can definitely understand that, and that's something that you just have to learn and get over that hurdle.
Wouldn't it also be the case with, like, and even with looking at your own perspective, every time you make a jump to a new team and you have a new crew chief, it then takes, that's why I thought last year what you and Bono were able to accomplish at DGR was pretty amazing, frankly, because it was almost like the two of you were just close enough in approach or whatever where you really hit it off and were able to.
Yeah.
But you'd been in the organization for a bit too, so it wasn't as if you went to a whole new situation.
Yeah. Well, Bono had been at DGR a year. He'd gone to DGR the year that I started racing K&N at DGR. Yeah. So he had gotten to know me a little bit.
Yep.
And he had excuse me. Ooh, got the hiccups. But he had seen me go race a few times in the K&N series. So, like, we kind of knew each other when we got in the truck. But I think for me, what it was with Bono was I had already known who Bono was before I even met him, just through Martin Truex. And
right.
you getting to meet him. And I always, just through stories as well, Dell Jr. podcast helps as well. But I think it was just my respect for Bono, and the trust that I had in him had helped a lot. But almost my entire racing career up till then was old school racers. I mean, I was racing out of PRW here in Statesville for the longest time. B&B, the auto body shop right there near downtown. I think it's B&B. I hung a late model body in there. So, and I'd always been around the guys who've been racing since the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s, even when it came to late model stuff. So I already kind of understood, in a sense, I already kind of understood Bono, the type of person he'd want to be, or who he was wanting to be as a crew chief.
Right.
And I understood that. And I think from there, and the help of David Gilliland and almost every single person around me, I always appreciated him, and he always worked really hard for me.
All right, we're going to have more with Tyler here in a little bit. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back and have the rest of the news of the NASCAR world. You're watching the Inside Pass on Facebook Live. We'll be back right after this.
Hello, race fans. This is Chris Wright. Thanks for listening to these guys. Man, what some great radio hosts. You're listening to the Inside Pass.
We're giving Tyler ideas for his next social media bit.
Yeah.
Ooh, are we?
Yeah,
Exactly.
you can use that for your next
Heck yeah.
crazy Tyler Ankrum.
Crazy. I'm not that crazy sometimes.
Yeah, if you haven't seen what we're talking about, there is a Facebook post that Tyler did. It was like 3 months ago now or so, right? It's been a
Something like
while,
that, yeah.
Of some safety stuff that he was practicing on for some sponsorship stuff he was doing. So it's good stuff, good video.
Yeah, if you're not following at Tyler Ankrum on Twitter, please do. I'm telling you, it's hilarious.
Yes.
Well,
You've got a very dry sense of humor.
I do, yeah. It's something that people don't really understand it. And I think I get it from my dad and my grandpa. You can see it more with my grandpa because my grandpa, he dresses, well, he's all cowboy. He rides horses and every day, and he grew up all cowboy, and he ropes and whatnot. But you talk to him, and he'll say something to you. But I know it's a joke because I grew up around my grandpa.
Right.
But he'll say it straight face.
Yeah.
Like it could be talking crap right to your face. And I'm on the ground rolling laughing. And they're just sitting there and they go, do I take this guy seriously? So I think I get that a lot from my dad and my grandpa. It's just kind of, I think it's an Ankrum thing. But even still, like, people sometimes don't understand my humor because they don't know if I'm just trying to be mean or just to be... never mind. If I'm just trying to be mean, and I get caught up in that sometimes because going back to what we were talking about before the show, if I can't talk crap to you, but you can talk it to me, it's like we are going to have a really rough relationship or friendship.
Well, yeah,
because that's just not the way I roll. It's got, and I always expect it back. That's the fun thing.
But you've never been afraid with your social media to sort of get into character or do something silly.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I like about you on social media is you're always honest. I go back to the announcement last year that when you sat and basically told us all that, look, we got to stop for a bit until we find sponsorship. We're not going to, that was as heartfelt and straightforward. And, you're just you. You're very authentic.
Well, thank you.
Very authentic.
I'm really big on not hiding who you are and just being yourself. I'm really big on that, and because I've never really believed in it. I've never really believed in hiding certain things from people. Yeah, I got insecurities. Yeah, I think I have things I don't like about myself. But you know what? I'm me at the end of the day, and I'm probably not going to be able to change it. So unless I go to the gym and try to get better looking. But I think...
let me know if you find a gym where that can happen.
Yeah, Gold's Gym.
Call Hunter Smith at Fit Stop Performance. He'll fix you right up.
No, but I think for me, just when it comes to social media, I think every once in a while I come up with a good idea, but usually it comes inspiration from somewhere else. Like I'm with my friends, and we'll be out doing something on my farm or somewhere else, and or someone will say something really funny or have a funny idea. I'll go, this is a perfect opportunity to come up with that idea and post something about it. But I think I can do better on social media. But my biggest thing also when it comes to social media is not to make it sound corporate or look corporate. Yeah. That's my biggest thing because I think what social media, the bandwidth of social media, what should be for is to build a brand, but also help build your sponsor's brand, but also at the same time build yourself as a person.
Well, you are your brand.
Correct. You are your brand. Yep. And I think that's the biggest thing, is I think you can do all that in one single...
Yes, I agree.
One single post or photo or what do you want to call it. You can do it all in one. It doesn't have to be one or the other, which I think some people sometimes get a little confused with. I know that's one of my biggest things with my parents is like, oh, you posted like 3 fun things in a row. It's like, yeah, but I had a Lyona shirt in on that one. I was doing this and that one. It's like Lyona was in it. It's like, that was cool, right? It's fun.
But also it's how you disguise it, right? People want to live their lives through you.
Yeah,
they want to see who you really are.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, there are some limits and some places you shouldn't go, and some drivers have trouble distinguishing. But but you've never been one of those guys.
I appreciate that.
Because your parents raised you well, and so you're able to now
I don't know if you heard that.
Yes, I heard it. But it's and you have cows.
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
and cows. People always, animals. Dogs, cats, cows. Show more animals on social media, and
Gives
they get clicks.
responsibility.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that too.
Yeah.
That too.
Yeah.
You actually work for what you get.
Well, I think it's funny because people. I'm from Southern California. I'm from San Bernardino, Redlands, Yucaipa area.
Yeah.
Inland Empire, and that's the biggest misconception when it comes to me is you think, oh, 6'1", tall, blonde hair. Oh, you're a surfer guy, right? It's like, no, I didn't grow up in Huntington, Santa Monica.
Right.
I grew up far. Actually, in fact, I can't stand the beach. I grew up riding horses and roping steers. I'll explain later for people who don't know. But I grew up around rodeo and cars. My grandpa always had classic cars in the garage that he was building to sell at auction and whatnot. So I always kind of grew up around that. I didn't grow up around the hip culture, I guess you could say. I think you could say I was trying to be an urban cowboy, if you will. But that's the biggest misconception with me is when I tell them, hey, I'm leaving the race shop. They're like, oh, what are you going to go do? It's like, well, I got to repair this fence. I got to paint this fence. I got to go do this. I got to do that. And they go, oh, what do you got after that? I was like, oh, then I'm meeting, Josh Wise, and we're going to go work out, and I'm going to do this probably about 8 o'clock at night because my mom won't make me quit working to go hang out with my girlfriend or whatnot, or my friends or whatever. So I think it does give you a sense of responsibility, but also a sense of hard work. There are times where I have to put the farm on back burner because there's so much to do, especially during the summer, because I sometimes lose sight of revolving my life around the farm and not racing when it was where it should always be. But you always have all these different responsibilities everywhere, and you always try to find the right balance. And it's even worse when I'm in school. I took the fall off of college because I didn't know what was going to happen with the coronavirus. I didn't know what was going to happen with racing. So I was like, I'm going to take the fall off, not risk anything, make sure I can, stay in school. So I think with everything going on, I got a good rhythm to my life. I think that's really the biggest thing for me. I'm always busy, which is nice because I'd be bored, especially when the corona was around and racing was shut down.
Yeah.
I was ready to pull my hair out because I was so bored all the time. My girlfriend was tired of me. My friends were tired of me. My mom was definitely tired of me. She's ready to move back to California.
Even the farm animals ran away.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. Oh, here comes Tyler.
My cows quit liking me. They're like, man, we liked you a lot more when you quit coming around so much.
Like, I can't give you anything else. Go away and leave me alone.
You're the only ones I can hang out with now.
Just sitting on the ground in the middle of the cow field. I'm just Tyler here by myself.
Yeah.
All right, let's get back to the news real quick, and then we'll get to know more about Tyler. Eric Amarola signed with Stewart House Racing. Another year, Smithfield coming back for 2021. So there's another ride, Tom, that's now out of the picture for anybody who may want to ride, or I guess drive for Stewart in 2021.
Well, and I think when you look at it, what's left at Stewart Haas? Okay, so you got Almirola back, and Cole Custer isn't going anywhere. So, what have you got? You've basically, Kevin Harvick's not going anywhere. So you've got Clint Boyer. And are you going to really replace Clint Boyer? I mean, you'd have to, if Clint wants to go, that's one thing, but I don't think he does. And I don't think they really want him to go. So I hear a lot of rumors about Kyle Larson and SHR. I just don't see where he fits into the picture right now because unless you get a whole whopping big check for Kyle Larson to come and drive for you that's way bigger than what Boyer, has, then I don't see that happening, at least not this year. Maybe in a year or two, but I don't see it now.
Yeah, that's very true. Also, Germain Racing, apparently there's a rumor going around that they could be up for sale. It's an unofficial sale, but some of the team owners said, they'd entertain any offer for anybody who might want to buy that team. So there could be some potential fire to that rumor. And Trevor Bayne is also going to return to the track this weekend, actually, at Darlington. He's going to pilot the number 40 for Nice Motorsports. Good to see Trevor back.
Yeah, I needed the bell there so I could hit. There you go. Hit the bell. That's a bell.
That's a bell for Trevor Bayne. Good to see Trevor back.
Yes.
A lot of us feel like he got wrongfully outed from Roush. So good to see him back on the wheel of a truck. So
yeah.
So we are going to take another quick break. When we come back, we'll get to know more about Tyler. We'll spend the second half hour talking about Tyler Ankrum about his season and his career in general. When we come back, more of the Inside Pass on WSIC right after this.
I'm Chase Elliott, and you're listening to the Inside Pass.
Welcome back to the Inside Pass here on WSIC. And once again, if you're watching us on Facebook Live, thank you for tuning into our show. We are taping the show. It will air Saturday morning, 9 a.m., WSIC Radio, part of the Motorsports Power Hour, with PRN's At the Track with Lenny Baticki coming on right after our show on Saturday morning. So if you missed the live version of the show, you can check it out Saturday morning, right before the Darlington race weekend gets really underway. We've got all three series in action at Darlington this weekend, Trucks, Xfinity, and Cup. And speaking of trucks, our guest today, Tyler Ankrum, joining us in studio. It's very rare we get a driver, especially these days, to come into the studio. So thank you for, fighting coronavirus or whatever to come in here. People
fighting
think
it real hard.
Well, people think that this is like, a bad place to be, but as we've told you before we start the show, that this entire studio is probably cleaner than the cleaning aisle at the supermarket with all the cleaning stuff that we use to sanitize this place. So it is very, very safe. But so I wanted to kind of do kind of like an in-depth type of interview, kind of where you started from and then kind of lead up to where we are right now. So you mentioned in the last segment, of course, you were born in California, and you talked about the misconception that everybody thinks that people born in California are automatically surfers or, you ride sharks or whatever for a living.
Tree huggers.
I came from Texas, so everybody assumes that I own a farm and that I watch tumbleweeds go by all the time.
Right.
But I'm from metropolitan Dallas, so there's no tumbleweeds anywhere around.
Yeah.
So I know what that whole misconception thing is like. But how does one go from a San Bernardino-born kid to a NASCAR Truck Series star?
Well, for me, as a kid, I was always really into cars. My grandpa always had old muscle cars. He had El Caminos, Corvettes, Novas, Camaros. He always had his hands on something. There, he was always working on something, and so I got to see a lot of that as a kid. And one of my grandpa's really good friends, Phil, he actually did that also as a car restoration business. So there'll be times where my grandpa would pick me up from school, and we go to his buddy Phil's house, and they just sit there, drink beer, and work on cars, and I just sit there in the corner and watch them. So I was always fascinated with cars growing up, and then along with that, my family was always NASCAR fans. So every single year, like my family growing up, we didn't have the money to go vacation. So Auto Club in Fontana was our vacation. We had like this fifth wheel weekend warrior, and you loaded everyone up in the fifth wheel or in the dually, my grandpa's dually, and we'd go to Fontana for the weekend. And so that was our vacation for, Thursday through Sunday. It was just the NASCAR track. And so for me, as a kid, it was always camped on the back stretch of Fontana, and that's what we did every year. And we always watched NASCAR. Sundays was watching the NASCAR races in golf because my dad was a golfer as a kid. So every time there was a commercial, he'd hit the previous button, switch over PGA, and every single time there was a commercial at the PGA Tour, he'd switch back over to the Cup Series. So it was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth for me as a kid. And I was always just fascinated with NASCAR. I was always a fan far before I was a driver. And actually, I didn't know it at the time when I was a kid, but my dad also raced, and he raced quarter midgets, and he raced quarter midgets about the time until he was age of 13, 14, when it was getting ready time to go open wheel midget racing or sprint car racing. But his parents couldn't afford to do so, so they said, "Hey, here's a bag of golf clubs. Here's another sport you can try." So that's when he became a golfer. And so I never knew that, and I was actually one day, I want to say I was like 6 or 7. I think I was 6. Yeah, I was 6. I was sitting in my grandmother's lap, just flipping through the family photos, and I saw a picture of a quarter midget. I go, "What's that?" My grandpa goes, "That's your dad. When he was 11 years old, he raced quarter midgets." And I think what every 6-year-old says is "I want one."
Yeah, why don't I have one?
Right, why don't I have one?
Actually, no, it goes like this. Can I have one?
Basically, yeah. So for 2 years, almost every single day I asked, when can we go racing? And after 2 years, on my 8th Christmas, I got my very first quarter midget. Tad Pfizer built it. And my 9th birthday was my very first race. March 6th was my very first race. And I was turning 9. And then from there, I raced quarter midgets for about 4 years. My final year, I was the first driver to win all 4 national championships in a single year. That record actually still stands after, 6, 7, years now. More than that.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, probably 7, 8 years.
Yeah, 7, yeah.
7 or 8 years. That record still stands. And then
That's awesome.
from there, I did midgets for about a year. And on the quarter midget tour, I became really good friends with Todd Gilliland. And David had just started a late model team. So I'm racing midgets on the West Coast and a little bit of pavement stuff on the East Coast. And David Gilliland was at my New Year's party in my house in California, just becoming friends with the Gillilands. And David asked me what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And he was still cup driving at the time, and I was like, what do you mean what do I want to do? I want to do what you do. I just remember him laughing at me because I think I looked at him like he was
It was
crazy.
a silly question.
Yeah,
wasn't
it was kind of a silly question. And David helped my father get a late model, got a crew chief. We started racing at DGR. I was 12 years old, started racing a limited late model. 13 went late model racing. And actually 13, we split off from DGR and started our own late model team. We hired a handful of guys, got a shop. Actually, our very first shop was in a old Ford dealership and had no AC, no insulation. So middle summer in Asheboro, North Carolina, you just have these brick walls that are covered in Ford and all these old, really cool lifts and pull-downs. Oh, I think, yeah, you did go there.
You and I were working together then.
And we went there, and from there we went to Ramsewer, and I started racing super late models. And then from there we actually went back down to Mooresville, and that's when we hired, kind of pretty much scrapped the entire team and restarted. Got Revolver chassis. When we went to Fury chassis compared to what we were racing. Yeah. Went to Fury chassis, hired Clay Rogers, Blake Bainbridge, and we absolutely hauled the mail my final year super late model.
Did.
And then actually went back to go race at DGR with David Gillen my first year at K&N. Won the K&N East Series, won 4 races, I believe, and then went truck racing with David again. And then won a race at Kentucky my very first year, won the Rookie of the Year. Made it to round of 6 in the playoffs. I know I sound like a real statistician right now, but I'm trying to boost my resume as anywhere I can. And then I think my very first year in the truck, I impressed a lot of people at Chevrolet, and we honestly really didn't have the money to go to GMS this year, but we got really lucky with the Lyuna, them coming on board. Super thankful for them, and also Chevrolet. Chevrolet supported me a lot this year, so I'm really, really thankful for them and what they're doing with me right now. And I just I'm ever more thankful for everyone at GMS and Chevrolet and Lyuna.
There were a lot of rumors, I think, at the end of last year about where your plans were for this year. There was a lot of rumors about, like, Kyle Busch, stealing you away from DGR, putting you in one of his trucks. There was a lot of other.
I heard all. I kept on telling everyone that I was going to go end up in the 48 car. Everyone was like, "Hey man, what do you do next year?" I was like, "I'm taking the 48 car
all the way to Cup."
All the way to Cup. No, but actually, I know what you're talking about because it was Martinsville. People were walking up to me like, "Hey man, congratulations with the knee start." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" It's like, I haven't signed nothing. Or, "Hey man, congratulations with the Kyle Busch." I'm like, I'm not even, what? Where are you hearing all these things?
Yeah, the rumor was that Kyle walked into DGR, walked out with Tyler Ankrum, and it's like, did he have to tie him up or kidnap him? Or
right.
how did that work?
That's how the rumor started, and then I think we started the rumor that Kyle walked into DGR with a handful of cash, whatever, walked out with you and a cow.
Yes,
because I said that taking the cow was part of the deal to get you to come to.
Oh my gosh,
ABM.
I heard all of them. I even heard people were telling me that they heard I was going Xfinity racing. I said no.
I believe we heard that rumor too.
I'm not going Xfinity racing, and they're like, "Well, when are we going to know?" I was like, "You're going to find out in Miami." So.
So this year, 2020 has been just an absolutely crazy year, with coronavirus and coming back and having to restart the season all over again. And as we mentioned before we came on the air, you are 15 points inside the cut line of the Truck Series playoffs right now. There's 2 races left, this weekend at Darlington, next weekend at Richmond, and Derek Krause is your closest competition. Everybody else has to win a race basically to make it in. So really, you only have one actual competition unless somebody like Stuart Friesen or Johnny Sutter end up winning. But these are 2 brand new tracks for you guys on the Truck Series circuit because they haven't ran these 2 tracks in several years. So.
Yeah, well, I think me and Todd are tied 15 above the cutoff line, and then Derek is 15 below. So
Yeah.
it's not comfortable, but it's nice enough to have, knowing that you can go into these next 2 races and be fairly aggressive. And I think everyone right now is kind of on edge about Darlington because of how tough on track that's too tough to tame the Lady in Black. And I think with that kind of place, everyone's a little nervous heading to Darlington because no one really knows what's going to happen. I think it's going to really be about who's the smartest guy, because I think there's going to be a lot of guys at the end of the race that aren't going to have right side bodies.
Yeah.
And they're going to need that side force and all those aerodynamics to help them make them go fast. And I think, knock on wood, hopefully that's not me. I think that if you go into Darlington with the mindset of not playing it safe, but playing it smart, safe or smart, not safe, playing it smart, I think you can go out there smelling like roses, and I think you can go to Richmond and have an easy day. And so that'll be the biggest thing going to Darlington, is not getting too excited, not getting too caught up, because if the place is as hard as it is in the simulator as it is in real life, I think I'll be playing it very, very smart. So I think going to Darlington, it's all going to be about survival. Who builds the tougher trucks? Who builds a stiffer right side body than the rest of them? So, because from what I've been told, it's not if, but when you hit the right side of that truck heading turn 1.
Yeah.
Yep, you're destined to lead Darlington with a stripe at some point during the race. So it's definitely going to be an exciting race. But you also mentioned having not won a race this year, whereas last year you won to get into the playoffs. But I think Tom and I both agree that if I was a driver, I would much rather win all my races in the chase or in the playoffs as much opposed to winning it before you get there. But I think everybody looks at what happened last year with Grant Enfinger winning the regular season championship, having not won a single race, and then Matt Crafton, his teammate, ending up winning the championship, having not won anything all year long, including a race, just being there at the end. And I think with this playoff format and the way that everything works out, if you're one of the final 4 at Phoenix, you just have to be better than the other 3. You don't necessarily have to win the race.
I think that's kind of the one of the biggest flaws of the format. Like, I think a lot of people think it's what's the phrase? Win to get in. Mm-hmm. I think, like what you guys were talking about with the Cup cars, I think a lot of people do think that way. I don't think it's a wrong way of thinking, but I think it's not necessarily the best way of thinking, because you can have a situation where you had last year where Brett Moffitt won all 3 races in the very first. I think it was the very first round of the playoffs.
First round of the playoffs. Yeah, he took the first round.
He won the first 2 in the very first round of the playoffs. So it's like, okay, so you really can't have that kind of format. So I think it really just comes down to, who really does have the best playoffs, because you can have a great year and it can be ruined in one round of the playoffs because you had 2 unlucky races. So I think when it comes to us not having won a race so far this year, and I don't necessarily look at that as an issue. I look at that as an opportunity, because if we're looking for a point in time to peak, it's to peak right now.
Oh, of course.
Because I think that's what happened to me last year. Won Kentucky, and I peaked. I think the next 3 or 4 races I was in the top 5 or something like that, or top 10 every single race, and then we kind of plateaued. And I think you guys look at guys in the Truck Series who were really, really strong at the beginning of the year, or they're not so strong now. So they can be in a recession, ready to peak again, or there are some guys that are peaking right now that are probably peaking too early. So I think we have some magic bullets slid up our sleeves here at the 26 Leona Chevrolet here at GMS Racing. And I think we'll be fine once we could reach the playoffs.
I think your entire team is starting to peak with Zane, Sheldon, Brett Moffitt, everybody that's on that team.
Yeah.
And in having the veteran guys coming into the 24 car every once in a while. Greg
the Biff.
Yeah, you get to be teammates with the Biff this weekend. So we'll talk more with Tyler about that when we come back. We're going to play a little game of 10 questions with Tyler Ankrum when we come back. We'll be right back on the Inside Pass.
This is Justin Lofton, and you're listening to the best guys on the radio, the Inside Pass.
Welcome back to the Inside Pass here on WSAC. Randy Miller, Tom Baker, Tyler Ankrum sitting in studio with us. And I guess I should mention also, of course, Nakia, our lovely Nakia, doing our production for us as she does every week. But Tyler actually brought his, whether one's babysitting the other one or whatever, but Jessica, the very awesome PR person for GMS Racing, is sitting off to the camera. She's camera shy. She won't be on camera, but we thank her for gracing us with her presence today, and so she can kind of see how we do things here in the WSIC studio. But I wanted to while we have 5 or 10 minutes left, I wanted to do a little game with Tyler Ankrum called 10 Questions for Tyler Ankrum. They're easy questions, but I mean they kind of, I guess, have a little thought process to them. But you've answered some of them already. But
yeah, I've played things before.
Just move on, Randy.
All right, we're moving on. So, question one: who was your biggest influence growing up?
My father, 100%.
I figured, based on everything you were saying, with your father and your grandfather, the family obviously playing a huge role, so that would obviously be a pretty easy answer. What is your biggest fear in life?
Alligators.
Really?
Yeah, screw alligators. I went down to I went down to Hilton Head.
Was unexpected.
I went down to Hilton Head, and there's like this park or this like national forest, and I'd seen this 16-foot alligator floating in the water like 100 yards away. And my mom was like, "Oh, let's go by the water and take pictures." I'm like, "Screw you! I'll stay
I'll be
rear end.
right over here.
I'll be in the truck with the windows up, and when you get drug in the water, I'm gonna wave bye because you wanted to be fun and nice and go play in the water." There are monsters lurking in the water you do not know about. Want to go take pictures by the water? Oh, come on!
That's awesome. But I actually kind of agree with you on that. What is one thing that makes Tyler laugh?
Oh, dark humor.
Dark humor. Oh, all right. That's
100%.
That's good.
100% dark humor.
That's good. What is your go-to karaoke song?
Ooh, "Don't Stop Believing" by Journey. 100%. As that's got to be America's like number one karaoke song.
That's a good.
But can you actually sing the song?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'll put some skinny jeans on and a leopard skin tight shirt.
His yellow safety vest.
I'll have my chest hair poking out through the V-neck.
And your sunglasses. You got to have
my sunglasses. I'll be looking like Don Johnson from Miami Vice.
Future social media post.
Yeah.
Yes. Jessica's going to have to take you to a karaoke bar and let you do that. Just for the image on social media.
I know a place.
If you could time travel, would you go back or would you go to the future? And why?
Definitely not the future, because it's probably more screwed up than what we're dealing with right now.
Probably.
Yeah.
Definitely the past. Definitely nowhere past where witchcraft was a thing. Because I'm sure if you just teleported and popped up somewhere, they'd try to, put you on a stake for witchcraft. Because he popped up with a cell phone, like, "Hey guys, what's going on?" And they're like, "Witch." And so I think I would probably pick a time where I would like to go back to the 60s. And not like Los Angeles 60s where the smog was the issue. What I mean is like right when the muscle car was being made.
See, that's exactly what I thought you were going to say.
He would fit right in going right there.
I would have liked if you said, "Hey,
I would have said 50s.
Pick a time to time travel and go back and stay there." I'd say start in the 50s, watch everything evolve from there.
Yeah.
All right, what is your guilty TV show pleasure?
All right, so don't judge me for this one. So right now, I don't know if I should say this. Me and my girlfriend started a show called Married at First Sight.
Yes.
And you know what?
I watched the show too. It is.
And you know what? At first, I was like, "Oh gosh," and I like my girlfriend a lot. I'm just gonna do it for her, right? Compromise. Relationships about compromise, Tyler. Like That's what I'm thinking about.
That's right.
It's like, all right, you're gonna watch Married at First Sight, so you can watch what you want next, right? And then I found myself like 3 episodes in, really into it. I was like, "What are you thinking? You're 30-something years old and you're having a relationship and blah 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 blah."
Yeah, I think it's the agony of watching somebody else's life fall apart.
Yeah. Or just
it makes you feel better about the life you have.
Yeah,
so.
And just have people not think. It's like, how could you not see this specifically?
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel too. If you came with a warning label, what would yours say?
There'd be a lot. There'd probably be a hazard signal on there. I'm not toxic. I don't think I am. But what warning label would I have?
Oh.
I have random spurts of crackhead energy.
Somehow I can see that.
Just random spurts. Like most of the time I'm mellow. Like right now I'm mellow, but like sometimes it's just.
It's like you could snap at any moment. Just become
snap.
like somebody with turrets and just start
like
blaring
the
off
OCD
random
kicks
things.
in. I got to clean everything. I got to do everything all in that very moment.
You're dusting your truck going down the front straight
exactly.
away. It's like,
right.
I see a piece of dust.
Yeah.
If you had to describe yourself as an animal, what animal would it be?
Oh my gosh. American bald eagle, man. Look at this hair. It's feathered and lethal.
It blows in the wind.
You should see it on race
Feathered
weekends.
and lethal.
That's awesome. That is so awesome.
That's
Tyler,
his warning label. I'm feathered and lethal.
There you go. We found the warning label.
That's Tyler in a nutshell right there. We want to thank Tyler for joining us today. Next week on the show, Nick DeGroot's going to come, and he's not going to come here, but he's going to be on the phone and sit in as co-host with Tom because I'm going to be out of town. So we're looking forward to that as well. And Jessica's going to work on getting some of his teammates to come and join us too because I think we need some
trying
dirt.
To get Sheldon here.
He
can barely get out of bed in the morning.
I want to know more about that, but we don't have enough time. So for Tom Baker, I'm Aaron Miller. Our thanks to Tyler Ankrum for joining us. Tyler, good luck this weekend at Darlington and Richmond, and good luck in the playoffs because I know you're going to make it in. And we will see you guys Thursday, actually tomorrow night for Motorsports Madness. If you're watching us live, have a great week. Enjoy Darlington, and we'll see you next week on the Inside Pass. Have a great week, everyone.